The following vodcast contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this vodcast is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hello and welcome to another edition of So We Think, ahead of one of the best days of racing anywhere across the world, Golden Slipper Day at Rosehill Gardens. 5 Group 1s on the card, Benway. But before we get into that, anything you'd like to reflect upon from last week? I think one thing in particular, Lady Shenandoah is just better than everyone else. And we did preempt it, and she showed us that on Saturday.
The thought, I don't know if it's been confirmed, we're not seeing her again this preparation?
I last looked on Tuesday if she was still active on Ryder, but I imagine she's being tipped out for a spell now. Yeah.
No, it was exciting. She was fantastic in the Coolmore and they pulled the right rein. They obviously had some options in the far lap and then they've been able to win that race as well. So she's brilliant, better than the rest, and soon enough, we'll touch on Autumn Glow later on, we'll get to see whether that horse comes back bigger and better than ever. Other talking points out of the day, Skyhawk loomed as absolutely a Golden Slipper contender. Memo finally delivered on the promise that I think Peter and all of us thought that she would 2 or 3 starts ago.
Yeah.
And it's all come too late for a Golden Slipper, essentially, so we won't see her there on Saturday. But that said, there were some good runs and I'm excited.
Vauban.
Yeah.
Wowee.
So first up, 2000.
And we've seen this from him before in the last 2 Melbourne Cups. He's a wreck of a horse when it comes to being the yard.
Was he terrible again?
He was arguably worse.
Right.
He looked like he wanted to jump the fence at one point, and it was a really hot, it was 37 degrees out there, so everything was sweating up, and rightfully so. You need to expel that sweat to cool down, but he just was a fizzed up horse. And then hearing from Tim Clark, he's an absolute dream to ride in the run, so he just gets himself
a touch
in
unlucky
state.
with the weather too, isn't he?
Yeah, like he's gotten 3 really hot days.
Yeah, and in Melbourne, in the spring, that's even here in the autumn. I feel as though that's pretty unlucky to cop that. What's happened?
What do you mean?
Well, just show everybody. What have you done? So people may not know this, but M does have some spare time. That's remarkable in itself, but it's limited. And in that limited time, you do like to go for a trot.
Yeah.
And explain to us, you've come a cropper.
Monday morning, I went for my regular run, and it's in the dark because I have to do it before my kids wake up. Yeah. And I took a tumble on Monday, and I've taken bark off my hand, off my arm, and off my leg, and my left ankle is just a little tender.
Is it? Is it
it's
rolled, or you've grazed that too?
No, it's not grazed. I rolled it.
Right.
And then when.
So where were you? It was Centennial? Or?
Yeah, it was dark though. No one saw it. Thank God.
Right. And what are we blaming? Stick, bat.
Stick or stone.
Stick or stone?
Yeah.
Rolled
Don't know
ankle.
what it was, though.
And are you on the road or on the running path?
At this point, I was trying to cross the road, so it was even worse.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to cross the road to get out of the park. Anyways, let's move on.
Peak time, you could have been hit by 18 cyclists.
Yeah. Luckily, they have always 30 different headlights on the front of their bike, so you always know they're coming.
You poor little thing.
Oh, it was a bit embarrassing coming back to home and having the same war wounds as my 5-year-olds got from being in the playground.
I don't say this lightly. I'd pay $5,000 for the vision.
Yeah.
Minimum. Anyway.
It wasn't a great moment, but I can
survived.
laugh about it. I am an absolute klutz. Anyways, things are coming up on the show today. Special guest Hugh Bowman. He flies in to Sydney over the next 48 hours to be able to ride Rivellino in the Golden Slipper. Of course, he's already won one. We'll speak about his association with Chris Lees today as well.
And with Farnan, given Farnan has 3 in the race.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll take a look at the Golden Slipper in depth, plus all of the other Group 1 races. But before we get into chats and the form, is this Australia's greatest day of racing? Stats will say it is. It's the only race day with the 5 Group 1s featuring the richest 2-year-old race in the world. Is it your favourite day of racing?
It's probably the best racing day, but it's not the race day I look forward to the most throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And you know what? You sent us a message and I couldn't agree more. You sit down to do the form or you just look through, you're looking through even acceptances and you're thinking, this is going to be unreal. So in terms of the Group 1s, yes, it is the marquee day. I love day 1 and day 2 of the championships. They're fast becoming two of my favourites. Everest Day, obviously Spring Carnival through Melbourne. And I'll throw another one out there. I've never had a bad time at Stradbroke Day.
Absolutely agree with you on that.
Absolutely love Stradbroke Day. Yeah. And in terms of days I enjoy at the races, it'd take some knocking off at number 1.
And I tell you what, we're working these days as well. And this is from a work perspective. So if you're going there and having a few drinks with friends, I can only imagine how much fun you're having
exactly.
on those days.
But from a work perspective, everyone's more relaxed at that time of year.
Strategy Day.
Golden Slipper Day, there'll be no one relaxed.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the day, though. There is so much tension and so much energy on track. I think out of those 5 Group 1s, the Slipper is far and above the one I look forward to the most. It's a race that I really do love. And even from those early 2-year-old trials in September, you're starting to look at them and pick the ones you like, pick the trials you like, their first up runs in the Gym Crack or the Breeders, and then you're following them from the get-go into the Slipper. And there's a few that did head to the first 2-year-old trials. Bella Zane was there, North England was there, Farsighted was there. Funny that there were 3 Waterhouse bot runners were all in the first official 2-year-old trials. So the other 4 Group 1s, they're great Group 1s, but they're not that top-tier elite level where I'm just so excited.
No, but they've drawn the elite field.
Correct.
They have. The race might not have the aura that maybe you speak of, but the fields are ridiculous. And, yeah, the Galaxy is probably the one where, to my eye, it's not like these hard and famous big talking point headline acts, but we could have a good storyline out of it. Private Harrier's favourite is one. Briasa, one of them may loom as an Everest hope.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the Everest. We have Everest headlines and we're in the autumn.
Well, let's get into it. The Tab Golden Slipper Group 1 event over the 1,200 metres for the 2-year-olds worth $5 million. And many a great judge have said over the last 2 months that it is the most open slipper that we have seen in many, many moons. Obviously, your favourite at the moment is Wotan, with Tempted clipping at his heels. Who starts favourite on the day?
I think Wotan does. So from a Tab perspective, Tim's spoken at length about this. Their liability is such that they haven't had the luxury of pushing Wotan out to a price that they probably see him being at. So they haven't been able to get out to a $6.50. So will we see that on race day? Maybe, but not if that liability. We need them to come for something else. Punters have to come for something else, otherwise we won't see it. So I don't know that Watson's price necessarily reflects our traders' view of his chances.
So I think
Do you get what I mean?
I think they will come, and they already have in a way for Tempted. Obviously, she's the filly that won the Riesling. She was really good. She ran quicker time than the boys. She has got a lot of residual fitness on her side. I think she'll peak on Slipper Day, and she draws the inside gate. And everyone knows that with a slipper, the last few years particularly tell you that you need to draw inside 7 to really be a chance in the slipper. Blake Shin won it last year, Lady of Camelot. James Cummings has got form here as well with Kiamichi. So I can see them coming for her. The money over the last couple of days as well has been coming for Mahuna, and I can completely understand that. She was a month between runs into the Riesling, and she was the only on-speed horse to stick it out till the end, where she was beaten less than half a length by Tempted, who made that rattling run down the outside. She would have taken great improvement from that second up run. Damien Lane's won a slipper. Michael Friedman's had a hand in 5 of them, and she has drawn ideally in 6. I think that's the perfect gate for her, and the money has tumbled in. If there was an each-way play there as well, at a bigger price than both of those fillies, it would be quietly arrogant, because this is the ultimate golden slipper team. You look at Newgate, they've won a couple. You look at Tommy Berry, he's won 3, and Peter Snowden's won a couple as well. Like, this team, they are made to win slippers.
I think it would surprise people to hear too that Tommy has won the 3. I mean, he's been a star jockey for a long time, but he's coming up to 4, and that would equal the record. So we've got Diane Quinton on 4, and, you know, they are legends of our sport. And Tommy looking to equal them. And there is a clump of them on 3, so you suddenly go into rare company with a 4th. It would be a monumental feat.
Wotan, Winkers going on, inside drawn right next to Tempted in gate 2, to be ridden more conservatively this time around. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are from an inside gate, more conservative means what? Your 3 pairs back inside? That's starting to get sticky. And James is not a jockey that will relinquish an advantage. And they have an advantage. You know, they could be leaders back essentially. So to give that up if they have the opportunity for leaders back, I don't know. Apparently Watson worked in the Winkers the other day and they were 50-50, but after the work Chris has decided to go that way. Really interested to see how it goes. And I will say it's not just hot air when people like you or I or others talking about this being one of the most open slippers. From a market perspective, it's the most open since the Sebring edition.
Yeah.
And it's also not hot air when we're talking about the liability of Wotan, because this would be Tab's worst single result on a horse in a slipper in Tim, our chief trader's time at Tab. So the liability is ridiculous, and that's the reason Wotan's being cuddled at this stage.
Well, someone who is flying in especially for the slipper this Saturday is a guy who's won it before, of horseback, a few years ago, and he rides Rivellino for Chris Lees. They've got a great association. Hugh Bowman won 3 Group 1s on board Samantha Miss and a number of other Group 1s for Chris Lees as well. And he joins us on So We Think from Hong Kong, and it looks like straight after a bit of work or maybe on the way to the airport. Huey?
Good morning, Emma. Just track work this morning at Sha Tin. So we'll go home and final preparations for the weekend and fly to Sydney this evening, land tomorrow morning.
And Huey's in some sort of form at the moment. So a double last night, a treble on Sunday just been as well. And you've got a great book of rides on Sunday back in Hong Kong for the Hong Kong Derby.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit thin actually, but we're looking forward. It's a huge weekend of racing, and I've got 4 or 5 rides there in Sydney on Saturday and a similar amount back here on Sunday. So it's a case of quality, not quantity, but looking forward to the weekend ahead.
Casting the mind back, Hugh, you think of someone like a Farnan, and suddenly now here we are 4 or 5 years down the track, and we've got 3 of his kids running around in a golden slipper. Can you cast your mind back to that time? Because it was a strange time, not just in racing, but in the world at that point.
Yeah, well, Ben, it was nice to have a chat to you. That was actually the first race meeting held, which was behind closed doors in the COVID era. So we had the Manikato Stakes on in Melbourne the night before, and I think there was about half a dozen or maybe 7 or 8 of us jockeys chartered a plane from Melbourne to Sydney on Saturday morning for the Golden Slipper. I remember distinctively, and it was a very surreal feeling, but that was the beginning of the COVID era actually. So it still meant a lot to win the race, despite there was no crowd being there. But look, he's an outstanding young colt, Farnan, and he seems to be passing that on to his progeny, which is very exciting for everyone involved with him.
It had slipped my mind, but I read an article, and it's great to chat to you too, by the way, Huey. We missed you, but I was reading an article that Hugh was part of, talking about when he won that slipper, and he gave his goggles to Chris Lees, and now here he is riding a golden slipper hope for Chris Lees. And I was a little surprised, Em, at how few slipper runners Chris had.
This is only his second
over his time, and the other ran around at triple figures, and I think ran last some 15 years ago or so.
I don't think this colt will be doing
I don't think so either.
Saturday. So tell us about the conversation that you had with Chris. I'm presuming quite a number of weeks ago about Rivellino. He goes into the slipper as one of only 2 horses in the field who are undefeated. He obviously has kept him 3 weeks in between runs, as has been the preparation all the way along. What kind of information has he given to you about how to ride him on the weekend?
Not much. He's sort of, what can he say? Obviously, I've had a good look at the horse, and when Will's got in motion that I was going to come back and ride him, obviously I paid a lot more attention. But look, I don't look too much into things like that until I see the barrier draw, because you can make assessments, and then once the barrier draws out, everything is completely different. So on Tuesday, after the draw was finalised, I really took some time to have a look through the race, and what my assumption was that it's the form lines, that there's no standout form line, and usually the main form line is that the Farnan form, which is obviously the silver slipper through the Todman and into the golden slipper. All the blue diamond is also always a very healthy form line as well, but usually doesn't stand up to that Todman form. But this year, I don't think that what I'd consider the main form line doesn't appear to me to be any stronger than anything else. So, in saying that, we won't really know until the race is run and won on the weekend. But this horse is unbeaten, as you pointed out, and what impressed me the most watching his replays is his ability to pick up the opposition in a number of strides, and he hasn't won by big margins, but he has won with authority, and he appears to have won quite comfortably on each occasion. So, he's going to have to take that to another level this weekend, no doubt, but the setup appears as though it might just provide him the opportunity to do that.
This is a little away from the slipper, but do you miss Sydney as a whole? I mean, steaming back into a slipper day, you're going to be into that jockey room that I'm sure you spent a lot of time over the years. How much do you miss it, and how much are you looking forward to that aspect of it?
Well, when Christine and I moved here a couple of years ago, it takes quite a bit of adjusting, and obviously, we've got a young family too, so there's a lot more to think about than just me. I mean, we've moved over as a family and made Hong Kong home, and when we were making those adjustments early on, I said to Christine, if we sit around thinking about what we're missing at home, we'll never be comfortable settling here. So I don't think about what I'm missing. I focus on what I'm doing here, and the opportunities have been consistent and good since I've arrived, and I'm very satisfied with the way things are going for here in Hong Kong, and thoroughly enjoying the job that it helped. As Emma pointed out, I had 3 winners on Sunday and 2 last night, so that certainly helps the motivation, I can assure you. But like home, winners are grinners, and when you're not winning, it's tough. So you got to work a bit harder. But to answer your question, I'm not thinking about what I'm missing at home. Obviously, I'd love to be a part of these big races week in, week out, which is simply not possible. But when the opportunity arises like it has this weekend, really, really proud and delighted to be coming back and competing.
Have you followed, I guess, the storylines into the slipper this year, and one of them being Wotan? Have you followed that, the big boom from the get-go, and how everyone thought that he'd be unbeatable in the slipper, and he opened at 100s, and then it was 51s, and it was 26s, and then after he won on debut, he was into the $3.50 quote. Yep. Have you followed his progress over the last, I guess, month or so, and do you have a thought on where he sits and if he should be favourite?
Look, I don't look into it that much. Obviously, I followed the horse, and he's obviously an expensive yearling, and he carries the Coolmore colours in the Chris Waller stable, and the eye doesn't lie. He's a beautiful looking horse, and he's a beautiful galloper. But is he a genuine golden slipper favourite material on his form? It's hard to say no, but he's certainly there to be beaten, I think. And I think, quite frankly, looking to the future, if you could have anything to do with him, then you'd want to be part of his future because it looks very bright. But he's going to have to step up to the plate if he's going to win the Slipper. But like Rivellino, he has been provided the setup for that. He's got the perfect draw in 2. He's got James McDonald to ride. And I've seen the stable, and I've seen other stables in the past have their horse run in the Todman, who's already secured a run in the Golden Slipper, although when Woderton ran in the Todman, he hadn't secured his place. But by running second, he did. And I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I'm expecting a huge improvement from that horse into the Golden Slipper.
I just want to ask you one more question, Huey. Can you just describe the energy of riding in a slipper? Capacity field, juveniles, a lot of them without a lot of race day experience, high pressure 1200 at Rosehill. Tell us how you feel as you're getting to the gates and before you're about to load with the energy that surrounds you on a day like that.
Of course. Well, you wouldn't be doing it if it didn't. Emma, and like I said, I'm very proud to be coming back to ride in the race, and very thankful of the opportunity from Chris and the Connection, who I'm very close to, of course. But you know, this is why I started riding racehorses, because I wanted this feeling of, you know, and I mean, obviously at the start of my career, I didn't, in my wildest dreams, think that it would have been the way it's been. But yeah, you can't help but be affected by the emotion that comes with riding in these races, and you've got to be able to manage those emotions and keep a lid on them, and control yourself and cope with the task at hand. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to be coming back and being involved again.
Hugh, a couple of years ago at some random midweek meeting that I was doing, you just won a race, and the horse most had predicted would be back near last. They've jumped well, and Hugh's taken it to the front, right? And they've streaked away. And first question I said to Hugh, geez, most people had you going back on the speed maps, but you went forward. Were you surprised by that early speed? And he replied, I don't believe in speed maps. Now, at the time, Ron Quinton, I can tell you, still to this day, every time I see him, he goes, I don't believe in speed maps. Because he thought it was hilarious. He doesn't really believe in speed maps either as a former jockey.
Especially when you get 3 different varieties of the same speed map each Saturday.
Exactly,
yeah.
And if you're married to a speed map, then it takes away your creative control, which is a jockey. That's what separates the good from the best, doesn't it? And Hugh's certainly proven himself to be top tier. So, Hugh, I'll ask you a different way. When you're manifesting the Golden Slipper, where do you see yourself sitting on Rivellino, and who are you behind and maybe tracking into the race?
Well, I have no idea at this point in time. But obviously I've drawn around the favoured runners. So the start's going to be significant as to where I sit or where I travel. Obviously the horses come from, you know, towards the rear of the field in his lead up victories, but each time he's had a wide draw and just found his feet. He's not the most brilliant of starters, so I'm expecting to be maybe a neck or so slower than the opposition out of the barriers, but he's still got the tactical speed to hold a position if that's what we choose to do. But look, the key really is to just have the horse comfortable and in a rhythm and in a position to finish the race off as strongly as he can, whether that's coming from the front, which is most unlikely, or midfield, or worse than midfield. I wouldn't imagine I'd be much further back than midfield, actually, from the way the draw and the setup is. But, you know, if I knew how the race was going to be run, or any other race for that matter, you'd make very little mistakes. So I can't answer the question, and neither can anyone else. The people that are creating the speed maps obviously put a lot of time and effort into doing that, and I must admit, I do give them more due diligence these days than I did in yesteryear. But I use that just simply as a guide because, and I'm not tied by it, and I guess experience helps too. But at the end of the day, you got to make up your own mind about how the horse is going to be best ridden, how the horse is going to react in certain situations. You take some guidance from the trainer and the connections, of course. You take some guidance from the speed maps, but at the end of the day, the speed map is just someone's opinion anyway. And so who's to say they're right? And then, as Emma pointed out, you could have 3 different speed maps. Well, that's not much good to anyone. So, as Emma asked about Woderton before, and he's not the only horse to beat here either, just quietly. It's a very even field, and I think any one of about 7 or 8 horses could win it. And so it's very important to go in there with an open mind, and I have full confidence that this horse can deliver, and I'll be making sure that he gets a smooth passage, hopefully an uninterrupted run, and we can finish the race off like he has in his lead-ups.
Huey, thank you. Your clarity of mind at the moment is something that strikes me. You're really in the zone. You're second on the premiership at the moment over there, and we look forward to having you back on Saturday to ride Rivellino in the slipper. But yeah, you can just see that he's got his eye on at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks, guys. Nice to chat.
Appreciate it.
Huey Bowman there, yeah, always good to chat, but you do feel like he's just
in the zone.
Yeah, really in the zone at the moment, and great discussing the slipper and what it means, and how it's going to unfold.
Has the jockey club given him the company credit card just to take James out for a few dinners while he's here, try and lure him over there full time?
I don't know.
You think? Does he want him over there full time?
Huey?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No, maybe not.
Let's get into the Ranvet over the 2,000 metres. This Group 1 at weight for age level, and of course Via Sistina will be your favourite. Everything that she has achieved since arriving in Australia, she's looking for back-to-back Ranvet, so to speak. But look, there's a couple of other really interesting runners here. Faulkner Park could have nearly won the Very Elegant. He was amazing first up for Annabelle and Rob in that. I expect him to finish in the first 2 or 3. And then Full Count Felicia is the other really interesting one because she's a mare from America but has done most of her racing in Canada. And she's got kind of Pride of Jenny tactics about her.
She has. In fact, they've brought over a couple that bumped into each other there over in the Northern Hemisphere, and both of them look very talented. One a breeder's horse, and of course, this girl, will she beat her in Canada? So, yeah, she arrives with a good resume. Probably a similar profile to Avia from last year, but the problem is now you bump into Avia this year. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. I did see that this race had one of the all-time great upsets back in the day with Ajax, who was probably named after the football team as opposed to the spray and wipe. But Ajax was 40-1 on.
Do you go the lemon scented or the lavender scented?
Lemon. Yeah, that's surely.
Stupid question.
Yeah, stupid question. Well, they have to sell lavender. They still make it. So 40-1 on and got rolled. And it made me think, this is way back when. We're talking 80 odd years ago, aren't we? But anyway, it got me thinking about the all-time great upsets. And it would be an upset if Via weren't to win, but it wouldn't be like god tier upsets. So
have you got a top 5?
Well,
there's Ben's famous
I've done a
top 5
I've
return.
I've got a few top 5 ideas at the moment. I've got one for next week, which I want everyone to get involved in.
Okay.
I'd like some nominations, mostly because I didn't have enough ideas myself to fill out the 5. Next week, I want to do most attractive racehorse.
Oh, Lonhro wins it hands down.
Well.
No. Lonhro wins that hands down.
I have some different votes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it depends.
Lonhro cannot be beaten in
It
that
depends
contest.
what you're into, doesn't it? For example...
So you think?
Well, you've got So You Think. Or maybe you're into, like, blazers. You might be into a Cascadian or an Apache Cat.
Oh,
you might be... I'm not. You might be
Depends what your thing is.
You might be into the blondes more than the brunettes and those with black hair. You might be more into, like, a Miracle of Life. Miracles of Life had beautiful blonde, clear
Flaxen
blonde.
mane, yeah.
Mighty Boss, they had no.
Now,
I mean, you are a blonde. You should.
So you think in Lonro black flashes every day of the week.
I've probably got Lonro on top. Anamo's
He was pretty good looking.
in that tier. Like if you're talking along the So You Thinks, the Lonros, Anamo would have to be right up there with those.
One of the best looking horses in Sydney racing at the moment actually will start nearly favourite in the George Ryder, and that's Royal Patronage. He is stunning.
A clear blonde, a random one, but ran around a season or so ago. Has disappeared. I think Pfeiffer had it. I might have that name wrong, but that was another one. Anyway, that's next week's.
That's
next week's top five. So this week's top five is, and I haven't even come up with the order yet, but it is top 5 upsets of all time, right? And there have been a few that were rolled, like finales, and then there are upsets that are big prices. So Rebel Raider Vic Darby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Not many people saw that
that was
coming.
pretty big. Yeah.
Flagship moment for Claire Lindop and Leon as well, but that was a huge upset. No, whenever they hit the line and people go, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
That's upset area.
Lasquetti Spirit.
Right. Lasquetti. Well, now you're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to
trying
to contribute.
You're trying to make me hurry, or it feels like you're hurrying me. Where would you have Lasquetti?
Up there in the first 2 or 3, and part of it, we've spoken about it before, the bow, the celebration, like that does formulate part of it. And one of her daughters is actually running on the weekend as well. She's entered for a couple of races at Rosehill Gardens. Lasquetti Dealer.
Yes. We had a Lasquetti at the midweeks the other week, which won for the same team, Lee and Cherie. So I've got Mighty Boss Caulfield Guineas beating Special K, bit ho-hum. I don't think that sneaks into the top 5. That's Prince of Penzance.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely got to be top 5 stuff.
That's top 5.
Yeah, for sure.
Top 2?
Probably top 2.
Probably top 2.
Yeah, okay.
Tears I Cried, Emirates Stakes beating Weekend Hustler.
That was big.
So, weirdly enough, that was the first Group 1 for Kieran Maher. He's picked up a few since that point.
Yeah, 50 or so.
Sox Nation, as soon as I was thinking of, when Sox Nation won, that was a bit of a who dat.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Like, because people probably don't appreciate this at home, but next time you see a race, once they hit the line, pick up after the caller calls the last horse over the line and try and summarise the race, because that's essentially what our job is day to day, apart from when we're doing a podcast. And when a horse like Sox Nation hits the line, you suddenly pick up the phone. Wow, what?
Yeah.
Well done to Kieran Maher and to...
How has he done that?
Yeah. So that was one. But I reckon God tier level 1 was Luna Fox in the 2021 Australian Guineas. People talk about 300 to 1. I don't think 300s was... That could have been on the fair for 30 seconds. But I reckon more around the 150, 200 to 1. So he won the size produce and he had finished 5th in a Caulfield Guineas. But I think if you're going around at 150s in a Group 1 and no one knows who you are, before or after, that's probably the one.
Good list. You just keep working on that to develop the top 5 in numerical order. That'd be good.
So next week...
Best looking.
And you've ruined it by saying there's only one good looking one. But that's...
Well, there's 2. Those 2. They're my 2.
2.
So you think...
Anamo's ugly.
No. But I think the other 2 had him covered.
Miracles of Life.
Yeah.
You're forgetting how pretty she was.
Okay.
Shout out to Lisa Stojakovic too.
Done the Ranvet. So VS16 wins that.
Yep.
Lindemann on the quick backup. Interesting.
Yeah, nah.
Leave me out of that. Okay, into the Darby Munro. And I know this is not a Group 1, but we need to talk about Autumn Glow. We need to talk about this undefeated filly.
Where's she at?
Where's she at and how good is she? Because going into the Flight Stakes last year, we all were thinking, as you said last week, is she the second coming of Christ? And then Lady Shenandoah pops on the scene. She wins that race.
Actually, I'm Jesus.
And she goes, no, I'm actually the bee's knees, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to see on Saturday?
Well, I mean, she wouldn't be at the races if she wasn't cherry ripe.
I think 1200 is probably short of her best as well going forward.
It probably is. It reeks of vulnerability, but I hope that's not the case. So, yeah, they had her peg number 1 seed with Lady Shenandoah too. So assuming she is fit, well, and at the stage of her preparation where we can see her best, should be exceptionally tough to beat. Who are the dangers?
Enriched coming out of the Fireball. I thought he was very good that day. And since the start of this preparation. I think he's just on an upward trajectory. He's beautifully bred. The 11 to the 1200 is a big tick for me, and this traditionally has been a very good guide for the Darby Munro. Ikasara is the speed factor in the race. Clear Proof, I don't mind Clear Proof because he has been gelded. The poor draw doesn't help, but I expect him to be hitting the line well, and I would expect he would take him more improvement, and maybe second up, he's a horse to watch. And then if there's one down the bottom...
He caused a huge upset on debut.
Yeah.
And I've chatted to John about that horse since, so he was absolutely running his race before he was getting out there, like so colty and just an absolute
And
mess.
maybe first up is not a play for him.
They're kind of striking a line through the last 2-3 runs of that preparation.
Which were in Group 1s.
Yeah.
And then Gangster Granny down the bottom is the progressive filly with jumping from the 64 to 72 to a listed event. But I'm just wary of a horse, of a little filly in form that she could run a big race and put her hand up for...
Was she Canterbury last start?
She was.
Yeah, I'm always a little hesitant on
She
that.
beat Weeping Woman, who won yesterday.
Well, a while.
Very well.
Okay.
A while.
What else have we got to look forward to? Galaxy?
Quickly go into the Galaxy. Private Harry, Beware the Undefeated Horse. Briasa, similar kind of profile, having won...
Should be undefeated.
You think should be undefeated? Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
They're the two interesting ones because they're
Watch the lot.
stepping up to Group 1 for the first time. You got I Am Me. She'll be very happy it's dry. Tongue tie on Growing Empire around the bend. Happy to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a straight horse.
Growing Empire and Harry are the two for me.
About the big girl and commemorative as well. They're opting to go to the
she's
Group 1 instead of the Group 3.
Do you think Harry is a Everest horse?
Yeah.
An Everest contender in that he could win an Everest?
I need to see first up. I mean,
the form...
we haven't seen Group 1 form from him yet. He hasn't raced in a Group 1 event.
Yeah, but we have seen Group 1 form around him.
Or have we what?
Like, you've had horses that he's beaten well, then running... Well, one ran fifth.
Lady of Camelot?
At Lady of Camelot. The other one ran fifth down the straight there at Flemington the other week, having come out of a race
Arabian Summer?
Yeah. So there's Group 1 form around him without being in a Group 1, and the times don't lie.
I think he's a pretty special talent. So is he your play?
Too short to be my play. I'll see once the market sort of finds its feet late. But I definitely think he's the horse to beat if that's the answer you
Your
wanted.
old boy in front page.
Yeah, I think his best might be behind him. Do you agree? James McDonald said that the best looking filly / mare in the country at the moment is Fangirl.
When she's on, you can see it in her eyes. And she's dappled up. So I cannot wait to see her. She's in just scintillating form at the moment. Obviously, we're talking about the George Ryder now over the 1,500 metres. And this is a cracking field. This is a great addition of the George Ryder. You've got Chow Wolf stepping back up to the 1,500 metres, which is going to suit more after running in the Canterbury Stakes following the setback last start.
I thought it was a good enough run over an undesirable trip off a setback. How about you, mate?
Tomkins in the form of a lifetime. But I don't think he's going to beat Fangirl.
Right.
I think
not good enough?
No, I think good enough, but just they're both a similar style of horse that get back run on, but he seems to duck and weave, whereas she loves to, swoop the field and get that clean air. I just trust that a little bit more.
Are we discounting Royal Patronage?
I don't think you can discount him. I mean, last start he was a Group 1 winner. So he comes into this looking for 2 on the hop. He's stunning.
If you had to beat your life, you're on Fangirl, though.
Yeah. I think she's...
Heart says Tom.
Heart says...
Head says Fangirl.
I do love her.
Pocket says Royal Patronage.
It's a great race, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And then you've got Militarize, who he'll be happy to be stepping up to the 15, but needs it wet. Where's Celestial Legend at? He was your boy last autumn.
Yeah, I want him to be my boy again, but I need to see more. I thought the last 50 was the best 50 of his race, but he doesn't seem that interested.
I don't think he really cares much anymore.
No, well, why would he?
Kovalika.
He achieved everything he had to achieve.
Kovalika, he'll need further. Port Lockroy, of course, he won the Group 1 Railway in Perth in the summer. Stevie Magnetica, Jason Collett on board.
Well, last time was just a disaster.
And she's going towards a Donny. And so Zach's committed to linebacker for the Doncaster, I believe. Unless there's another Waller filly that pops up, maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Steffi at a mile, they're convinced. I'll take convincing. They obviously know what they're doing. But to bypass some sprints that I think she would have been exceptionally competitive in to chase the mile, she's already shown that would be her strength, but whether she's better than the other milers.
I just get like cold sweats thinking about her returning to the scene of the horror show that was the Golden Eagle. Like, there's too many horses in that race to begin with, each and every year. And she just go and watch the overhead again. It's like, it's car crash stuff.
She'll wish she was born in 40 years' time and this race would be at Warwick Farm. Rosehill Guineas.
Broadsiding, Swift Falcon, Eliana and Gold Rush Guru head the market. Broadsiding bounces back 2,000 metres, or Swift Falcon, 2,000 should suit. Gold Rush Guru, don't discount him. He's been running some really good races over unsuitable trips down in Melbourne, including the Australian Guineas. I think he's flying. And then the filly down the bottom, the filly.
Not that filly.
Not different filly, but
yeah.
She can run another big race too.
Yeah. They don't have that many runners in the slipper this year, so Gail have eyes on
what was
all
it last
three.
year? They've got 3 this year. They had 5 last year, 6.
Well, without dubbing Gay in, I think she had eyes towards the colt. And so then, as the filly burst through, she just had to process who the filly was for 2 ticks. But Lady of Camelot,
great job for Channel 7 for having that camera there to capture that moment in time that we will forever cherish.
That dynamic in the lounge room is something else, isn't it?
Robbie's on his laptop doing something. The chef's down the back.
I was about to say, just as you find them like really relatable, in walks a waiter on it with a silver plate, presenting one grape to them, and you think, oh no, that's right, you loaded.
I think she's down there again, actually.
But it also shows like they're willing to let the cameras into their house and they'll show the raw. Like that's the rawness of it. Whenever I
thought you said the raw.
Oh no, sorry, rawness. But whenever
this is getting silly.
Yeah, it is. Whenever I think of Gay Waterhouse and the cameras being on her mid race, I don't think of Lady of Camelot and the filly. I actually think of another race where she swears in the grandstand. Do you remember? Chautauqua stormed home late to blouse
and she goes like
English.
This. Yeah,
and there was a word I never thought I'd see come out of her mouth. And everyone who was on her horse thought the same thing that day. Melbourne?
Quick thought. William Reid on the Saturday now. Jimmy Starr, your favourite, having to step up. Weight for age level now. We're not under the handicap conditions where he was beautifully treated last start.
Do you think he's vulnerable?
I do. Yep.
Okay.
I do think he's vulnerable,
dangers?
especially around the valley. I'd love to see Charlotte Littlefield win her first Group 1. I think
you can't launch a run like he did last time at the Valley, can you?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Anyway, he's fave and will be tough to beat.
Right.
Great weekend of racing.
It's just one of the best.
Good to chat to Hugh. He's got some good rides aside from the slipper, which we didn't touch on.
He's got Marzu in the Galaxy and then your mate Celestial Legend in the George Ryder. If it may be in Hugh we trust.
Maybe. I don't know that he could ever give a better steer than Tyler gave in the
Doncaster.
Yep.
49.5.
It was a 55 out of 10. Enjoyed him.
Final thoughts just on the slipper, just before we go. Like, what's your play?
I thought I was going to be Wotan and Mahuna, and I've gone towards Tempted Devil Knight.
Great.
I wanted to find the other two, and you shouldn't go into form doing that, but I wanted to find them, and I went a completely different direction. Devil Knight, I completely understand what your point is about the gap between runs, except that everything that has come out of that race, in a race where, that horse is S-speed, big price, not much was expected, a surprise, hasn't been seen since. So I get the $13, but everything that's come out of that race has won.
I know.
Or run really well in defeat. It's got to be a chance. And I don't even think the draw is that much of a concern. You sit maybe 2/3 back and launch a run similar to what we saw there in Melbourne.
He's got to be a player.
Yeah.
He's got to be a player.
Who are you keen on?
Quietly arrogant. Mahuna.
I want the horses, not your personality. Mahuna, the heart would be Mahuna, surely.
And probably Tempted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Box trifecta.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Put them all in there. Thanks for joining us on So We Think. We'll be back with you next weekend to wrap up everything from Slipper Day.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.